For me, it is such a privilege that I can sit here in my nice little studio and reach out to the entire world. And I started my podcast in German, but I, from the beginning on, had an intention to do an international German podcast. An international podcast. I think it is so important that we hear some of the voices that we can hear a lot in the United States, also here on this side of the big pond. The big pond is an expression I learned, or I got from my pen friend, Ronald Sanford, the man who is sitting since more than 30 years in prison in the United States for a crime he committed when he was 13 years old. I think myself about expressions like, is it possible to forgive in our community? How long do we have to pay for our sins until they are forgiven? I don't understand what's going on there. And there are certain expressions in our human life that are so important. I would like to talk with my guests about questions, even about the meaning of life, even about what does love mean in our life. My personal purpose, my personal credo is to appreciate people at 100%. We all are human beings. We all are facing the same final destination. Everybody is gonna face his own death. We shouldn't forget that. And so this means, who are we? Who are we in this vast space? And it is even more than just a vast space. And what unites us? What is the connection between us? Why are we even able to communicate to each other? And why is it important that we communicate? And I think just with categories of science, we never will really come close enough to these questions. I'm a big fan of sciences. I'm a big fan of physics. I think it is extremely fascinating how far human mind has reached with the matters of physics, of mathematics, of biology, of chemistry. It is really, really nobody 500 years ago, and it's not very long, 500 years compared to the age of this planet, nobody would have imagined only a bit or a piece of what we have achieved in terms of science, in terms of technology. And I'm sure it is just the beginning of the journey. But there are still questions we have to come closer on different levels, in parallel, I would say. So there is the question of philosophy, there's the question of psychology. It is the question of us as human beings. I think we as human beings are, in a certain way, defining our world. We are creating our world. And if it is only just as an imagination, we don't know. So if we want to cope with this technical progression, what we are doing at the moment, if we want to still be human beings also in 100 years or in 500 years, we have to develop ourselves in a certain way as well. It's not enough that we just develop the technology. We have to develop, maybe I would like to cite this teacher called Sadhguru, the man with the beard and the sunglasses, this Indian guru who is so modern and driving motorcycles and flying his planes. And he has this book title, Inner Engineering. And I would say this is a very important and very good title. I don't want to go into the content of this book now, but this is a kind of keyword that is describing what is our goal here. We need to develop as humans. We need to develop as humanity. And the question is, what can we do? How can we think? And thinking is something that has a much bigger impact than many of us believe. Good thoughts have extreme high power. Good thoughts are able to overcome totalitarian regimes. It is always the thoughts that started to change the world. So I would like to expand the network, the global network of good thoughts, of meaningful thoughts, of powerful thoughts. I think we have a good start of that in the United States. There are several podcasts, there are several discussions which are bringing good thoughts into this world, good ideas. So we are developing, but it is like a race. There are different powers, and we have to go on with this race. We have to go on and bringing and expressing those thoughts, those discussions. We have to inspire more and more people. We have to create a critical mass of people who are thinking out of the box, who are purpose-driven, who are impact-driven. What does it mean? It means it makes us happy if we can contribute to the bigger part. I just watched a podcast between Lex Friedman and Yeonmi Park. This is one of the best podcasts I ever heard. I can really recommend it to you. And Yeonmi, she is such an impressive person. And I wish once to have her here in my podcast. It would be maybe the peak for me at the moment. Because I think she's one of the most important thinkers at this globe, at this point of time. Listen to her. And there is one sentence she says at the end. She says that it makes her happy. And she is so glad that she now is in a situation or in a position where she can contribute to the bigger of life. And she also says always, we in the West, we are so well fed that we maybe forget that life is a gift, that it is a much bigger thing than we are as a small psyche. I would say this is the little prison we are in, the prison of our psyche. And it is so interesting because this discussion about the prison of our psyche is very, very old. I once have studied philosophy, and one of the, for me, most important philosophers in mankind, in the whole mankind or whole history of mankind was Socrates. And Socrates is part of the book of Plato called The State. Politeia is the Greek title of this book. And Socrates is in this book on a quest of the, I would say of the happy life. But we have to understand that happy life at the old ancient Greece doesn't mean like happiness in the sense of, I have a lot of joy and fun. it means more the question of a fulfilled life. So happy means here fulfilled. And he asked this question, who has the happiest life? So what constitution of our psyche, of our soul do we need to have in order to obtain a happy life or a fulfilled life? And the basic question is it, let's say, the evil person who, because of his evilness, gets a lot of richdom, a lot of fun, a lot of power, kind of dictators. And he describes a kind of soul, a state of soul, a state of psyche, a state of mind that he calls the tyrannic soul, the tyrannic mind. So the modern word would be the dictator, yeah? The dictator soul, the dictator mind. And so he describes this state of mind as an inner prison. It is a prison. And he describes other different states of mind, states of the psyche, which are more free, more liberal. And he talks even about a kind of democratic state of mind, inside democratic state of mind. And he already talks about different players within the soul, within the psyche, different personalities, different shadows of personality. So he talks about what we today in modern terms of psychology would call an inner team or an inner family system. So this is an old question. So how can we as persons, as human beings, in an individual way develop us? How can we be on an eye level with this technological development we have? How can we respond in a human way, in a human developed way to all these crazy technological developments we are experiencing today in our days in the world? And how as a society should we develop? And the question is, as societies, do we really have to repeat the patterns over and over and over again? Is it really necessary? Or is there somehow something we can experience as a development in human societies? So now this is quite a philosophical talk what I'm doing here, but this is somehow the kernel, the innerst part of what is driving me when I do these podcasts. The center of my thinking, of my doing, is the human being. The human being is a part of a much bigger, let's call it, system. And I want to connect, and I want humans to be connected globally. I want ideas to spread out in a different way than maybe others do it, at least in Germany, at least in Europe. I want to give those thoughts enough time. I want to give those discussions real deep appreciation. I want to help ourselves, to help myself and help my guests to really become vulnerable, because I think we have to become vulnerable. This is one part of our journey. This is a development. We human beings, we are running over this globe already since hundreds of thousands of years. And we have a development as societies behind us. We once started, and we did for hundreds of thousands of years, a kind of tribe society. And within this tribe society, it was very important to survive by letting the tribe survive, by supporting the tribe to survive. The survival of the tribe was the guarantee of the survival of the individual. And this means that we as individuals learned to hide ourselves, to hide our own needs, to hide our own faults, in order not to be pushed out of the tribe. Because being pushed out of the tribe was equal to death penalty. We couldn't survive on our own 100,000 years ago. Absolutely not possible. So we needed to somehow subordinate ourselves under the tribe. And this is very deep inside of us. And this is why all these conventions, all these norms are so strong in us. This is why it is so hard for us to be really vulnerable, to be really authentic, to really speak truth. It is so hard for us. And for everybody, for me, for maybe the most enlightened person even. But we can't help but just go on with that. Go on with that journey of trying to become more and more and more authentic, more vulnerable, more real human beings. The goal is to become real human beings. And to be a real human being means to be a real human being in the here and the now. So all the history of us, all our personal history is somehow important, yes, and it leads to what we are at the moment. It leads especially to our situation. But it is not who we are. And we all should acknowledge to each other that who are we? Who are you? And by acknowledging who we are, we start to realize that we are connected. We are all connected. And not only connected by, we all sitting on the same little planet in the vast universe. Yeah, that also, but we are connected. There's only one space here. And so one of my most, let's say, strongest ideas why I start now an English international podcast, although it is hard for me to express myself in English. I'm a philosopher. I'm also a psychologist. And, you know, philosophy is a lot about precision of thinking and precision of expression. And it's hard for me to find really the precise expression in an other language than my own mother language, my own native speaking. On the other side, it's interesting. The English language is a very, let's say, pragmatic language. On the other side, the English language is the international language. At least in the Western world, but I would say it is the international language. Even China, I know Chinese is a very important language, but even those people in China who try to connect with the international community start learning English. They don't start learning French or German or I don't know what, Kiswahili, but they start learning English. So this is the platform. And I think it's very important that we have this one platform, this one common language. And now by chance maybe, or maybe not by chance, it is the English language. And I like the English language because it's a very pragmatic language. And it has a very nice and direct way to express certain things. It's maybe not as precise as my mother language. It is a very efficient or economic language. I mean, economic not as an economy business, but an economy within how I can express things in a very direct and a very, easy way. So this is why I really like English, and I love to listen to English podcasts and American podcasts, and it's interesting that if I speak English, somehow my thoughts express themselves in a different way. So I see it even as a chance. I am able to think things that I wouldn't think in German. It's very interesting. It's like kind of a deliberation of certain patterns of mine. I wouldn't talk like that if I would do the German trailer of the German podcast. It's very different. So it's a chance. It's an enrichment for me. And why do I want to do this podcast, this international podcast? Because I think this so important discussions. Jordan Peterson once said that we are starting a kind of intellectual dark web. So this means a kind of intellectual discussion about, or discourse, I would say, about things that are so central for us as a human beings, as developing society, as mankind, and that are deliberated from central media controls, that are looking their own ways, their own paths to spread around the world. And I know it's also a dangerous thing, because there is a lot of rubbish, a lot of really crazy stuff, and there is a lot of disinformation by purpose. The trolls that we are talking about, the governments that try to define the world. There's a German word that is very strong, and I don't know whether it's really translating well into English. We call it Deutungshoheit. This means, I look here at the translator, it says interpretative sovereignty. But I think it's not really well translating. So what it means is the powerful also has the right, or has the power to interpret the world, to tell us the stories about what's going on. And in former times, this is maybe one of the reasons also why written letters, written language has been developed. It was a tool of power. Only the kings, the emperors, were able to write, or to let write, and then they have let write, put their writing into stone, carved into stones, so that the next generations even will be somehow influenced by this. And this is a war about communication here in this world at the moment. And this is the reason why so much disinformation is spread around. And I think that we human beings are more intelligent than just the simple systems of power. And we always have been. My daughter once asked me, what is stronger, the good or the evil? And I, without even thinking, I said, for sure the good. And then she asked why. And I said, okay, I had to think a little bit, but then I had an answer. And I said, because the good has the power of love. And the love is the awareness of being connected to each other. Love is connection, in my point of view. And the evil is always separated because the evil works with the power of fear. And fear is separation. We always have fear because we feel separated, we feel alone. And this makes us weak, and this makes us vulnerable. But not vulnerable in the positive way, but in the way of how it makes us fear. We human beings we are kind of like antennas. Our nerve system is extremely powerful. Our brains are extremely powerful. And I think that on the human development of the mankind, we are in a kind of a critical phase of our development. And this is why we all should work on bringing this on the right track, on a good track, on a helpful track, on a track that gives us connection. And so I think that people on the long run are able to distinguish between the rubbish and the true speaking. And when I talk about truth, it's so a dangerous word, truth, because we have here again the power thing. You can define truth if you have enough power. You can say there is only the one truth. It's the hierarchic kind of truth. And hierarchy is a Greek expression. Hierarchy means the holy beginning. This is the expression of hierarchy, the holy beginning. And let's say in the context of monotheistic societies, the holy beginning means then there's the one beginning, only the one, from the one God. And then there are certain people who are the ones who are defining what is this beginning, what is the meaning of this. So they can define the one beginning and the only one. And then we have the only one truth. So there's the one that is the truth. And so they also define what is the good and what is the bad. And they even finally define what is the beauty and what is the ugly. And I think I have a different approach of what I mean if I say people can distinguish truth from untruth. I mean here truth in the meaning of authenticity, of direct perception, of direct understanding of something that is truth here and now, that is true here and now for me here and now. And the chain, what I was just describing, it is a middle-age chain from Christian philosophers, scholastic philosophers. They say the one and only is the true, and the true is the good, and the good is also the beauty. And I think it's other way around. As Plato and Socrates were talking about it, they said the beauty is somehow the hint. So look for the beauty. And if we talk about beauty, we all know beauty is not just, like a beautiful girl. This is a certain way of beauty, but it's more a sexual attraction beauty. Or a beautiful car, that's also kind of attraction thing. But there's also other ways of beauty. Purity is beauty. If physicists are talking about formulas, mathematical formulas, they say it's a beautiful formula. A formula has to be simple, and then it's beautiful, and then it's most likely true. They have it. So think about it. The scientists, the rational people, the super rationals in our point of view, they think about beauty. So and this also started thousands of years ago, this insight. So the beauty is what brings us to the good. Something, if it is beautiful, it is good. If a formula is simple and beautiful, it seems to be a good formula. And the good brings us to the truth. And if we find the truth, we maybe find a glimpse of the one, of the unity. But it's not an approach made and given by some certain circle of human beings who would define the one thing, the one truth for everybody. It is a kind of a super individual approach, something that is based in the personal perception and the personal insight of every single human being. This is the path, and this is what we have to follow. And it doesn't mean that we have to neglect all our scientific thinking, all these fantastic things, all this kind of objectivity, all this share of work. This is fantastic. This is great. But on the other side, every single human being needs to develop, needs to train and develop his personal instruments of insight, his personal instrument of understanding, his personal instrument of experience, of knowledge, of thinking. And the more we are developing that, the more likely we find majorities that spontaneously will follow the development of humanity, follow the development of humanity as a connected collective, but from within. It is, I once wrote it in German, I don't know whether it translates. I said it is das Gemeinsame. It is a structure of grammatic that is maybe not really translating into English, but it means the common from the common. Or maybe let's say the common from within. That would be maybe a good translation. So not a common, the one from without, from the emperor or from the pope or for somebody who says, this is the common, this is the one thing, this is the one world. No, it is a common from within. It is coming out from every single individuum is developing and evolving and bringing us all together. I never had the plan to express all this crazy stuff. It's interesting. I never had the plan to express this now. I don't know where it came from now, but certainly it's part of my thinking. And coming back to my thought, I think that an international podcast made in Germany or made in Europe, it is important. It is important because we need to extend this discussion, what we have in the United States now, and it's such a precious discussion. I just name some of them. It's people like Lex Friedman or Yomi Park or Jordan Peterson or even Joe Rogan or Sam Harris and many others who are in this discussion, in this very, very exciting thinking. And there are so many others, many scholars, entrepreneurs, artists. And we need to extend this discussion because I'm sure that there are many people in Europe or in Asia who are listening to that, but it is just like looking into a window of a different house, yeah? It's, okay, the Americans, they have interesting discussions about, they have interesting problems, but it is not only the American, it is our whole world. We all need to participate on this discussion. And the common language is English. Okay, fine, well, fair enough. But we all need to extend this discussion, and this is my goal. I want to have a global discussion. I want to have a global participation on this discussion about our future as mankind, about all the questions. And I tell you, I feel myself really blessed, because when I studied philosophy, and it is like it is like 30 years ago now. At that time, philosophy was a little bit like historical science. It was like history, you know. You thought about, you read about Plato or about Descartes or about Kant or Hegel, but these all were historical figures. And since this time of Hegel and the German idealism and the philosophy suddenly lost its importance. Because of the huge developments of the natural sciences. Natural science overtook the part of try to figure out what it is about in our world. What is the meaning of life? What's all about it? So natural science started to explain the world. And even though also in these times, in these last 200 years, always when the natural science went to its borders, it started becoming philosophically. Because philosophy, I would say, has two important roles. It is a science of borders. So wherever we go to the borders, we start to become philosophically. Because there's then a kind of speculation, there is a kind of open space we need, open space of thinking. And there's a second role, it is bringing different disciplines together, bringing different points of views together. So bringing the question of beautiness, of aestheticism together with mathematics, for example. So when I started with philosophy, it was somehow a very hidden science or a hidden subject. But I see now the, let's say, rebirth, the renaissance maybe in English, of the philosophy, because the development on the globe has been so extreme and will be so extreme. Talking about artificial intelligence, talking about expanding our lifetimes, talking about digital connectedness of all human beings, and so many more things, that we need again really philosophical thoughts, a kind of a navigation systems through all this VUCA world. I'm sure you know this expression, VUCA world. V for volatility, U for uncertainty, C for complexity, and A for ambiguity. This is the world we are living in here now. 200 years ago, the world was very clearly explained. You know, there were maybe the Catholic Church, or there was the king, or somebody who explained the world. It was very easy. It was very easy to understand what is the good, what is the bad. It was very easy to somehow maybe even predict the future, the near future at least. This is all gone. And I would say it's good, because the one explanation, as I already talked about, was not maybe the good explanation, because it was just the one explanation from one powerful little group of people, of men. And so it's a very good development, but it's also scaring. And I'm sure there are many, many people who are also scared about this development, because it's so uncertain. And this is also a threat to all of us, because if people are scared they are very open to this one explanation. It gives us pseudo safety. The pseudo safety of the one explanation. We have the habit to go into this direction because it feels so much safer. So it's really, we need to have a lot of also courage to leave these simple explanations behind us. It is a question of courage. And I would like to encourage people also around the globe. I would like to encourage you to go on, to find your own way of explanation of the world, of the explanation of who you are. And I am 100% convinced that this is promising. It is promising. It is finally even promising a kind of real home. And this is what we are searching for. Real home. So, that's it. So I hope that I will find around the globe really interesting people who would like to say something. And my approach always is the human being. I would like to understand how you feel about certain things. I would like to understand what impact have experiences on you, and how do you cope with them, and how do you turn bad experiences into positive energy, or how maybe even not. Hey, how are you not able to turn it? But I would say the majority will be able to turn it. Sometimes it's a question of patience, but sometimes it's also a question of luck. Maybe there's a right person in the right moment that helps you. Sometimes it's a question of willpower. Sometimes it's a question of the right decision. And sometimes it's a question of just letting go and trust into whatever it is. So I'm very, very excited. I'm very looking forward to starting now the English podcast, the English International German podcast. Purpose is the Pitch by Konstantin Schimert.